From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Making a difference with every acre. See what a North Dakota operation has been doing when it comes to regenerative agriculture for well over 100 years.
Here at Black Lake Ranch in central North Dakota, their focus for nearly 150 years has been regenerative agriculture, including the cattle, the land, the wildlife, as well as their family.
After the storm,
Heard people say they've seen 50 bushels, they've seen 90 bushels.
we visit Louisiana as farmers get back out in the fields following Hurricane Francine, as days without rain continue to add up.
The national topsoil moisture rated short to very short, increasing 5 percentage points to reach a year-to-date high of 52%.
The impact that's continuing to have on harvest. Right now on AgDay.
AgDay is brought to you by Pioneer. Put Pioneer brand corn's exclusive genetics on your team. Win with higher yields and industry-leading traits. Pioneer brand corn. Your best year starts here.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Drought conditions continue to grow across the country as every state in the Midwest sees dryness expand. The results showing up in the latest drought monitor, which now shows just under 30% of the nation is in drought. While the ongoing warm, dry weather is helping corn and soybeans mature, at the same time, it's depleting soil moisture reserves. In fact, the national topsoil moisture rated short to very short increased 5% to reach a year-to-date high of 52% on average. USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey says several regions across the country reported states with significant topsoil moisture loss, including West Virginia, which is at 100% very short, and look at Ohio at 92%.
Still, though, the national footprint of topsoil moisture surplus is just 3%. However, we do see values greater than 20% on the 15th of September in Georgia, leading the nation at 28%, also above 20% at that time, Florida, Arkansas, and Mississippi.
However, what was left of Hurricane Francine did provide topsoil moisture in parts of the Mississippi Delta. That sharp turn toward dryness is pushing harvest forward in many states. This is soybean harvest in Gladbrook, Iowa this week. Now, so far, 6% of the nation's soybeans have been harvested and combines are just starting to run in Iowa. Now, in the other I states of Illinois and Indiana, 6% of the bean crop is cut. That's 5 points ahead of the 5-year average. 4% of soybeans are harvested in Ohio. That state usually hasn't even started yet. Meanwhile, in Louisiana, farmers are trying to get back into the field following Hurricane Francine. With just about half of the soybean crop harvested, LSU Ag Center's Craig Gautreaux stopped by a central Louisiana farm as farmers evaluate what's left to cut.
Louisiana soybean farmers started harvesting their crop in August and were making good progress with good results. But a stretch of wet weather followed closely by Hurricane Francine is potentially turning a good crop into an average one.
I've heard people say they've seen 50 bushels, they've seen 90 bushels. So when all that's accounted for, I hope that we're at our state average at 50, 52 bushels per acre, which would be our best year in 3 years.
The good news is a good portion of the crop was harvested before the wet weather arrived. The bad news is that some of the remaining beans left in the field were vulnerable.
We're sitting at about 50% harvested, and we're going to have another 10 to 20% that's near maturity or mature, and we're likely to get some seed damage there.
A common theme in agriculture is low prices for nearly all commodities, including soybeans. Losing yield and seed quality is only going to compound this problem.
The price for soybean has dropped this year, and the input cost continues to rise. So it will take quite a bit just to get your input cost back.
Mosley is now scouting the fields to help determine the extent of the damage.
It might take a week or so after the storm to really know how much damage that we received from the storm.
The sun has been shining since Francine passed, and farmers across the state are getting back to harvesting the rest of the crop. With the LSU Ag Center, this is Craig Gautreaux reporting.
But some areas of the Great Lakes are in for some much needed rain. Meteorologist Jack Van Meter has a look ahead for us.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Clinton. We actually are going to be seeing some rainfall finally, especially in the Great Lakes states and also some of the Midwest as well. As I put this in motion, we can just see just a little bit of rain, just right around a tenth to upwards of a half an inch of rain. But as we can see furtherwise, we're going to finally see that ridge of high pressure break down and actually start to deposit some well-needed rainfall, again, across parts of the upper Midwest as well. As we can see a nice little swath of 2 inches of rain down through Indiana, and also Texas getting a healthy drink of water as well. This is very good news. And we're seeing more harvesting ramping up. Chris Johnson going after his soybeans near Great Bend, North Dakota. Looks like a picture perfect day to get out there in the field. Of that forecast in just a second.
A new survey of rural bankers has fallen to a level not seen since the beginning of the pandemic. The Rural Main Street Index coming in with a reading of 37.5. That's the 13th straight month for decline. It also represents its lowest reading since the beginning of the pandemic in the spring of 2020. Now, the survey conducted by Creighton University showing that bankers expect almost 40% of farmers in the region to experience negative farm income this year. Ernie Goss, who leads the survey, says that weak agriculture commodity prices, sinking ag equipment sales, and increased input costs continue to impact the survey. Tyson is facing a lawsuit accusing the company of making false or misleading marketing claims about its climate-friendly products. The suit comes from the Environmental Working Group, which says it filed the suit under the District of Columbia Consumer Protection Procedures Act. And the group says the suit targets Tyson's claims that its meat production operations will reach net zero greenhouse gas emissions by the year 2050 and that it produces, quote, climate smart beef. In response, Tyson did not comment on the lawsuit directly to AgDay, but defended its environmental practices, saying it has a long history of sustainable practices that embrace good stewardship of environmental resources. Not good news ahead of Thanksgiving when it comes to turkeys. Production continuing to decline and prices are lower as well. The industry has been trying to keep production down and prices stable in the face of declining demand. USDA recently lowering its forecast for this year's turkey production. It's now down to about 5 billion pounds.
Lowest U.S. production since 1995, but even despite that, margins are still weak, and we're not looking at much improvement into 2025 either.
The USDA is projecting for next year an average price of $1.03 per pound. That's about 9 cents higher than this year. A big day for stocks helped to lift cattle futures, but grains spent the day in a slump. We'll talk about markets coming up next. And later, regardless of prices, we'll see how a ranch family in North Dakota is working to bring the next generation back to the ranch in a sustainable way in the country.
Introducing Unscripted with Ty Morgan and Clinton Griffiths. Real, raw, and entertaining. A new episode is available every Friday on Farm Journal's YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts.
BASF could soon be going through a major overhaul. Bloomberg News reporting the company plans to prepare its ag chemicals business for an initial public offering in the next few years. It would be part of a restructuring process set to be announced later this month. Reuters says the German business may also be signaling its willingness to sell parts of its coatings portfolio or possibly bring in a partner. Now, in December of last year, BASF announced plans to turn its agriculture, battery materials, and coatings businesses into autonomous units. At the time, the company's previous CEO says there was no intention to sell them. Grains were challenged while cattle futures soared, right along with the Dow Jones. AgDay's Michelle Rook lets us know what's fueling the buying in markets now.
Grains all lower on Thursday with the livestock futures to the plus side. Mike Feiner is joining us with analysis. Okay, the setback in the grains, how much of this is harvest pressure starting versus just some weather, both in the U.S. and South America?
I think there's a couple factors. One, early harvest pressure applying on the soybeans, especially here. When I look over at the Brazil situation as well, the forecast called for some wetter weather in the beginning of October.
Yeah, and then there's talk of rain in the southern plains. We've already had a little bit of rain there, so maybe that was the pressure on wheat as well.
Yeah, that northern Oklahoma area, that forecast further out, I think that's what they're focusing on the wheat a little bit. And we bounced up to some resistance levels, and we've kind of been trailing off now a little bit.
Yeah, I was going to say we've run up into chart resistance really on all the grains, haven't we, Mike?
Yeah, we have. I mean, we had a nice recovery. We had a nice seasonal recovery. It's not uncommon for us to put a low in at the end of August. So we were able to apply pressure in some of these areas at lower levels at a kind of a right time seasonally, and without much harvest pressure at that time. At the end of the year like that, there wasn't a lot of farmer selling to really counteract some of these funds getting out of their short positions.
So cattle and hogs went the opposite direction to the plus side. It felt like maybe a delayed reaction to the interest rate cuts.
Yeah, because that info came out just 5 minutes before the close on the livestock markets yesterday. So cattle really didn't get to react to yesterday's news. And in fact, I mean, even the stock market itself didn't really react yesterday for the news of the 50-point cut. So when I look at the reaction today, it was a little bit stronger across the board.
Yeah, it definitely equates to maybe a little bit better perception about demand then, right, for meat?
I think it's a great outlook. Powell's remarks saying things like we're not in trouble. We look really good. It was almost bullish in his statements that he had. So at this point, no real concerns from a demand perspective for these meats, which have really been thriving in that category.
Thanks so much, Mike Miner, professional ag marketing. We'll have more AgDay coming up. Watch Markets Now with Michelle Rook on the Farm Journal YouTube channel, keeping you updated throughout the day on the markets at the open, midday, and close. Find out what moved the markets today and what to expect the market to do next.
And today we've actually just seen the new drought monitor finally drop. And as we can see, a lot of dry conditions are really starting to show their almost ugly faces across parts of the eastern United States. As we can see, West Virginia, unfortunately still, this has pretty much honestly been one of our driest states in the union, seeing that extreme and actually exceptional drought. And that is starting to migrate north into Ohio as well. And take a look at Indiana, dry and moderate drought really setting in there, and especially down south. Moving out west though, and as we can see, that drought is still expanding, especially in Kansas and actually parts of Nebraska as well. Moving up to Montana, again, still seeing that exceptional drought going all the way out to the coast. And as we can see, those west coast states still dealing with some of those pretty intense wildfires as well. And it doesn't look, unfortunately, like anybody's going to be seeing any sort of relief out west with rainfall. That being said, for our Midwestern and Great Lakes states, actually, we will be seeing some moisture moving through for this weekend and actually next week as well. As we can see, as the ridge finally starts to break down, we are starting to get some precipitation. We do have this massive little guy, this little trough that is just to the north in Canada, going to deposit a little bit of rainfall as well. And as we can see, as this low pressure starts to ride up onto the ridge and finally start to break it down, we can see some well-deserved moisture move through parts of the Midwest. Great thing there. Jet stream, though, again, it's going to be this large low pressure system that'll finally break down this high pressure ridge, giving areas, especially in Texas, a nice shot of rainfall into next week as well. Again, just keeping this pushing, and it's finally going to be breaking down that ridge. And also take a look at the trough that develops for parts of the eastern United States. And again, we are going to be dealing with those high temperatures once again for parts of the west and northern plains as we get another ridge of high pressure starting to set up once again in the middle of the country. Newcastle, Indiana, high of 91 degrees, low of 64 degrees. Athens, Ohio, you're going to be dealing with some fog in the morning and then sun in the afternoon, 91 degrees and low of just 61 degrees. And finally, Park Falls, Wisconsin, some clouds in the morning, then sun, 75 degrees, low of 50 degrees.
We'll take a look at some new equipment rolling out on our Smart Farming Friday next. And later, we're off to North Dakota to see how one ranch family is building a sustainable operation by finding ways to bring the next generation back home. taking a look at the latest farm tech just in time for harvest. GSI introducing a new lineup of mixed flow dryers. Now, GSI says the new dryers reduce downtime and maintain capacity with no screens to clean during the harvest time. Company managers say they can also dry multiple crops without changeover. Now, the dryers come with independently controlled modules that allow for multi-zone temperature as well as the ability to run full heat or dry cool modes. They can also be loaded with either a leveling auger or a gravity-filled box and unloaded with dual 7-inch meter rolls that supply grain to a single drag discharge conveyor. And Vermeer is releasing a new line of mower conditioners for hay producers. There are 4 models, each offering a range of cutting widths. 2 are side pull models designed for smaller to medium operations. For larger operations, Vermeer has 2 center pull models. The entire line is equipped with the Q3 cutter bar, which features a quick clip blade retention system. Finding a way to get the next generation of ranchers back home can be difficult. Up next, we're off to North Dakota to learn how one operation is making it work in the country. The 5th Trust in Beef Sustainable Ranchers Tour was recently held in North Dakota. Now, the tour stopping at an operation that has been able to bring the next generation back home, not only through a regenerative approach to farming and ranching, but through their out-of-the-box business approach. AgDay's Michelle Rook introduces us to the Dones.
The last stop on the Trust in Beef Sustainable Ranchers Tour brings us here to central North Dakota and the Black Leg Ranch, a multi-generational operation run by the Doan family since 1882. Black Leg Ranch has grown from 160 acres to the present 20,000. 3/4 is native grassland, 1/4 cropland, but every acre is built on regenerative agriculture and holistic management.
We use planned rotational grazing. We graze, move cattle every 1 to 7 days. We're constantly moving cattle, and we also raise buffalo here. And then we grow a lot of cover crops, like 25 different species in a cover crop. And that's really improved our soil health.
Jay Stone oversees the cattle operation and direct-to-consumer grass-fed beef business at Black Leg.
I think that healthy grass correlates to a healthy end product. So what we're doing with managing our land is rotational grazing, intensive grazing, trying not to overstock or overgraze.
That approach won Black Leg NCBA's Environmental Stewardship Award in 2016.
Their care for wildlife, their care for cattle, care for the land, water, all the things come together and truly showcase that above all else they care for their environment around them.
On the tour, the Dones also showcased how they've stacked enterprises such as hunting, agritourism, and events, plus a brewery started in 2018.
We brewed about 16 different brews, but we focus on 5 of our core brands. We have a couple on our Bison portfolio, and then a few on our Black Leg portfolio.
Trust in Beef Partners also shared how they're helping every sector of the beef supply chain operate sustainably.
And that means environmentally, it means profitably, and it also means socially. So making sure that we have thriving rural communities.
Plus how producers can adopt cutting-edge technology to be more efficient.
Genetics is the foundation of that more sustainable food supply, and we're really on the frontier of addressing sustainability concerns using genetic innovations and genetic technology.
We utilize our ground owl sensor suite, which is made up of 2 different sensors. We use that to collect scan data alongside true soil samples. We run all of that data through our machine learning platform to generate soil attribute maps for a range of attributes such as carbon, compaction, and anything fertility related.
Partners also explained the financial and technical assistance they provide producers adopting regenerative practices.
What kinds of decisions do we need to make today and this year or next year so that we can continue to do these important practices or be sustainable in our entire operation well into the future.
And all 5 stops on the tour illustrated how they're uniquely making their operation sustainable and how other producers can do the same.
We've reached a large audience of education showing what can be done on the ranch with good sound stewardship, good conservation practices, and climate smart practices on the ground.
I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
All right, thanks Michelle, and that's all the time we have this morning. From All of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day out in Farm Country.